2023 Beaverton Urban Renewal Agency meeting to order. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Board Members Beatty, marking she'll be a few minutes late. Board Member Duggar. Show he's logged on. I will mark him present. Board Member Hartmeyer-Prague.
I'm here.
Thank you. Board Member Hassan, marking she'll be a few minutes late. Board Member Roy Kim.
Here.
Thank you. Board Member Edward Kimmy.
Here.
Board Member Teeter. Marking excused for the moment. Board Member Tivnon.
Here.
Board Member Oven, marking excused this evening. Board Member Vitko will be late. And Board Member Walton.
Here.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, the first thing on our agenda is visitor comments. Visitor comments allow visitors to speak to the Bureau Board about matters not included on tonight's agenda for a public hearing. For example, in a few minutes, we will have a public hearing on the Beaverton Central Garage expanded rates and programs. If you are here to comment on the rates and programs for the Beaverton Central Garage, please hold your comments until we formally open the public hearing on the budget. If you wish to speak on a matter not scheduled as a public hearing on tonight's agenda, now is your time. City Recorder, do we have anyone here to address the Bureau Board?
Chair Tivnon, we do not.
Okay, then we'll move on to board communications. Do any board members have any information they would like to share with the rest of the board and the interim executive director? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to the approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes to consider tonight. First is the minutes of the special joint City Council Bureau Board meeting on May 10th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve the joint meeting minutes?
I move to approve the joint meeting minutes.
I second.
Great, okay, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, would the recorder please call the roll for the vote?
Board Member Beatty, I believe she just joined. Vote on the minutes.
Yes.
Thank you. Board Member Duggar.
Yes, or sorry, abstain.
Abstain. Okay. Board Member Hartmeyer-Prague.
Yes.
Kim.
Yes.
Kimmy.
Abstain.
Tivnon.
Yes.
And Walton.
Yeah.
Passes 4 yeses, 2 abstains.
Okay. Second is the Bureau regular meeting of January 24th, 2023. I'll take a motion for the Bureau meeting.
Move that we approve the Bureau meeting minutes from January 24th, 2023.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, would the recorder please call the roll?
Beatty.
Yes.
Duggar.
Yes.
Hartmeyer-Prague.
Yes.
Kim.
Yes.
Kimmy.
Yes.
Tivnon.
Yes.
And Walton.
Yes.
Passes 6-0.
Great, thank you. We'll be moving on to business items now. Tonight we have 6 items on the business agenda, so we'll be judicious in getting through these. First up is Bureau Bill 2023-56, authorized retail incubator procurement exception request. Looks like we have Rachel Team. Can you remind me how to pronounce your last name?
It's Teamy.
Teamy. Rachel Teamy is joining us tonight. Rachel, it's good to see you and thank you for that. Is there a staff presentation?
There's not. I will, hopefully this will be a quick one. So I know you have a packed agenda for this evening. I do have a few things I'd like to just say to kind of introduce the bill, if that's appropriate.
Of course.
Excellent. Fantastic. So good to see you all. Rachel Teamy from the Economic Development team here at the city. I wanted to just give you some context for the Bureau bill in your packet tonight. As you all know, Bureau adopted the downtown equity strategy last fall. One of the recommended actions is to find creative ways for us to support more inclusive and affordable commercial spaces for small businesses in the downtown area. Staff over the last few months has been working with a community-based organization, Apano Community United Fund, to develop a proposal for a retail incubator that serves BIPOC business owners. We've been planning to contract with Apano to conduct a feasibility study, a business plan, and a concept for this kind of incubator, which could serve to support these small businesses as well as serve as an active retail presence in our downtown. There's a lot of information we don't know about what this retail model best fit could be like, what kind of rents such a user could pay, what kind of startup capital they would need. And the scope of work that we've been developing with Apano could really help answer some of these questions. But prior to executing this initial contract with Apano, I'm here tonight to ask you all for an exception to a rule in our purchasing code, which would allow Apano to potentially bid on or participate in future projects related to this concept, such as potentially receiving building improvement grant funds or a lease agreement or some kind of arrangement related to implementing the concepts developed in this initial scope of work. If we don't receive this exemption prior to contracting with Apano, we can't work with them on this type of project in the future. And we don't know exactly what this future project would look like or entail. This exception wouldn't guarantee that Apano would receive a lease or a grant to implement this type of incubator, but it would give them the opportunity to submit a bid or a letter of intent on a space that Bureau owned, for example, or otherwise have the chance to participate in implementing this concept. In the bill, it does outline the city's purchasing code in a few sections. This was adopted by Bureau, and there is a rule in this purchasing code that limits conflicts of interest in public contracting. And the rule says that we can't generally hire a contractor to provide specifications for a future project and then later allow that same contractor to bid on or submit a proposal for the solicitation of that future project. There is an exception to this rule, which I'm here tonight to ask you for, which says that the city must first apply for an exception to the city council, or in this case, the Bureau board, and provide justification so that the board can determine whether or not to grant the exception. So the Bureau board would need to base their approval on two criteria. Number one, that the approval is unlikely to encourage favoritism in public contracting or to substantially diminish competition for public contracts. And then the second criteria is that this approval is reasonably expected to result in substantial cost savings to the agency or the public, or otherwise substantially promotes the public interest. So we've got more detail in your packet on the basis for the justifications, but staff have found that the approval of this exception is unlikely to encourage favoritism or substantially diminish competition. With any future project, whatever that may be, we would still follow Bureau's existing procurement processes. Furthermore, staff have found that the approval of this exception is reasonably expected to substantially promote the public interest. As you recall, we heard loud and clear from our community engagement on the downtown equity strategy and other related projects that community members want more thriving BIPOC-owned businesses in the downtown. Additionally, I think we've been to you to tell you this before, but retail vacancy rates are at an all-time low in the downtown. It's very challenging to find and be able to afford commercial space right now, particularly so for BIPOC-owned businesses and others with marginalized identities who are more likely to have less access to capital and family wealth. The findings from this initial work with Apano will help to inform any potential incentives that could help Bureau attract and support a retail incubator with these communities at the forefront. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Do any board members have questions? Mayor Beatty.
Sorry, I don't know why I raised my hand. We've been doing this for 3 years and putting our names in the chat. I'm generally inclined to support the exception to the procurement rule. My concern is I know Apano tends to want to dabble in both things and have retail space and do that in the future. So how do we ensure as the oversight board that they're not using their information to get a leg up on competition and get a space? So that's my general concern, is that I think they'd be a great partner for the incubator, but I also know they have an interest because they've expressed wanting to do more retail. And I think we would treat this differently if it was a developer. We would say no way. And so we're carving out an exception here that I think might be a little double standard, because when we have developers sit on bureau, we tell them they can't bid on projects in here. So how do we tell one board member they can't, and then how we're setting up this exception for somebody that can?
So I will say, and if Bill Kirby wanted to jump in at all, feel free. But the procurement rule does lay out this path for an exception, with it, provided that the applicant meets these two criteria, which we believe that they do. So we need their expertise. I mean, I think that's first and foremost. The city, staff have never run an incubator before. We don't know. We need a lot of information from them about what the best way to approach this would be, what types of rents they could pay. And we have been marketing this opportunity, at least in the Beaverton Central Garage, over the last year or so, and we haven't had any interest from any other parties besides Apano to do some kind of incubator. And so I think the opportunity has been out there for quite some time. I believe it's even on the sign on the building, potential future incubator use, and they're the only party that's shown an interest so far. I think that we also have to show that this substantially promotes the public interest. And so looking back at some of the engagement and the goals and priorities that you all as a board and council have set out, I believe that we have met that criteria.
So is there a disclosure? I'm not thinking about the work now. I think they're going to be excellent partners in the work now. And that's not my that we're going that direction. I think that they have experience in this particular area and they've done it in other buildings. I'm just worried about the next step. It's the reason why we don't let developers sit on bureau and then bid, because they have access to a lot of information and stuff that they're doing. And so how do we limit that in the future? Like, what do I tell the community to make sure that there's oversight is what I'm looking for. Maybe that's an attorney question, because I felt like maybe I'm not asking it the way that's allowing you to answer it the way I feel comfortable. How do I have legal protection, and how do we tell the community that we're going to make sure it's not going to be used in the future in a different way?
Yes, I see Bill just chimed in. I will just say briefly, I think, we would, if we're talking about a lease in a bureau-owned space, or we're talking about a grant program, those are programs that have their own approval processes. They're ranked and scored. Any incubator that would be a potential tenant would still have to submit an application, go through the established matrix, and those opportunities would be advertised and available to other users as well. Bill, feel free to add to that.
Well, the question I was going to ask, what type of information do you think that Apano would gain from this work?
I guess it's hard for me to have the unknown of what they might do in the future.
Right.
Like, so I don't know how to frame the question, because I don't know what might arise. And I guess maybe it's just, is there a way for us to be alerted if they're bidding? Because those decisions are not made by this board or the city council. And so we would not even be aware if something was happening in the future. So we are going to give the exception, but we wouldn't make any decisions about leasing in the future.
I think the board would be approving a lease, but you're right that you might go through the entire negotiation process. But I guess the question for Ms. Teamy is, are they going to have inside information that's going to be relevant to a lease, or are they going to be doing something else that, while they know information about the city, it's not really germane to grants? Or
so I guess if you're both saying it's germane, why are we even going through this process of an exception?
Well, the exception basically says that they would be precluded from any participation associated with what they're doing. And I think just the belts and suspenders of making sure that if there is going to be a allowance for them to bid, they need to know that. I don't know whether or not they're willing to participate if they don't have the exception. Ms. Teamy, do you know?
That's a good question. I think they are, I think they're certainly interested in doing this initial work with us. We don't know what the future project will be. We don't know if we're talking about a lease or a future incentive. I fully expect us to learn the information see the information that they have provided in this feasibility study, and potentially Bureau develops and approves an incentive to try to bring this type of use into either a Bureau-owned space or maybe a development agreement in the future. We don't know what that will look like. So it's hard to say. I'm not sure if they would. If I don't know the answer if they would not participate in this initial work if they did not get the exception. But I think out of an abundance of caution, if they, I think they are interested in potentially doing this work in the future, and so that's why we're here tonight, to provide that.
Okay. I just feel like I'm missing something. I read the agenda packet. I hear what you're saying, and it feels like if it's germane, why are we doing this? And there's not something that I feel like I'm missing something, but I'll let other people go.
Yeah, I'd love to chime in here before we move on to others that are in the chat. My day job is in public procurement. I work with a lot of consultants, and I've seen this play out before where this would help us avoid a protest from another firm should Apano win work later on, who says, they call foul on it, conflict of interest. So I think and I've seen like transportation engineering firms help cities write RFPs all the time, so they get the language right. And usually they're allowed to also bid on the work later on because it's a may the best firm win mentality. And it's because they did not write the RFP in a way that gave them an unfair advantage. And if those things can be proven out and we have a very high level of confidence in them, then it is about the selection committee making a very fair assessment and a fair choice at the end of the procurement process. So I think the concern that I would have is, well, it's not even a concern, it's just something to consider is there a possibility, and I am a huge fan of Apano, so let's just say it wasn't Apano, just any firm in this position, that they could potentially massage the work they're going to do at the front end to in some way give them an unfair advantage later on. I think is where the concern is. And it sounds like there is a very high level of understanding and agreement and faith that is absolutely not going to happen, which is why the recommendation is to grant the exception. And once we grant it, that means that should affirm later on, not like the fact that Apano ended up winning future lease, they wouldn't have much grounds for a protest. Is that fair to say that?
I think you're correct that it would avoid the protest in the future. I'd still get back to the question of Borough plans to use Apano to develop a feasibility study and business plan for BIPOC serving retail business incubator in downtown Beaverton. And what sort of information would that project give them that would be an advantage in future contracting? And it would have to be something along the lines of what is being described, that somehow they have criteria that they're recommending that gives them an undue advantage. But that criteria is accepted by the city. This isn't a lockstep because Apano suggested it, we're going to do it. So that's the other safeguard, is that, no, we just feel that that's not an objective standard, that's an unfair advantage. We could reject those things. So I think that's the basis of it, but you're permitted to vote no, and in that case, the offer to do the feasibility study and that work is still there, and they just would know that they can't participate in future bids.
And I will just add, if I may, we are not hiring them to develop an incentive program for Bureau or to develop an RFP process or anything that is direct in the example that you gave, Councillor Tivnon. And so I think I agree with Bill's assessment that this is a feasibility study and a concept plan, and then we will have the information to then develop potentially a future incentive or other program utilizing some of that information.
Okay. All right, well then moving on to others in the chat, Councilor Duggar, Board Member Duggar.
Yeah, I had the same issue. I'm also a procurement professional during the day, and there's a reason these rules exist. So I actually need that question answered before I can reasonably vote yes. Would they do this if they don't get the exception? The other thing that concerns me is if we only have one partner bidding for the work, then I feel like we are not done with our work. We have to get more partners to bid for the work, because this is taxpayer and public money we're spending to do this. And I think we've got to do diligence, and we've got to find a few potential partners that will give us the best price. And I think the world of Apano. I think they're great. Like I have a problem with them, granting them this, but I'm trying to look at this not at Apano, just as a general organization. And I don't think I can, in good faith, sign the taxpayers of Beaverton up and our partners to participate in Bureau for this without at least 1 to 2 more companies bidding for this work as a procurement professional. That's just my opinion.
Okay, Board Member Kimmy.
Yeah, I have just a question that the regards to retail incubator, is this the concept or is this something that Bureau was looking for in the past? This is the first time I heard last year and a half.
So this is an action item from the downtown equity strategy. One of the suggested implementation items is to look at providing or encouraging such an incubator that could support BIPOC-owned businesses and serve as a kind of retail hub, a retail store, essentially, with an active presence in the downtown. And then also one of the uses that Bureau suggested to staff for the Beaverton Central Garage that is owned by Bureau. So it is a type of user that staff have been seeking out over the last year and a half without any hits yet.
So we are doing a feasibility study for retail incubator who will do the job of recruiting BIPOC community to be our tenant?
So that's not what this scope of work would be. A feasibility study and a business plan for how a retail incubator, what are the operational costs? How much startup capital would such a user need? What are some of the models? How many staff do you need? Since this is a use that we haven't been able to get yet, we have a lot of gaps in our knowledge. And so that's one of the reasons for doing this feasibility study in the first place. So once we are able to recruit an incubator, whether it's in a Bureau-owned building or in a privately owned building, I think we'll, whoever is managing that space, whether it's a community-based organization or someone else, that they would be responsible for recruiting the subtenants in that space.
Oh, okay. The reason that I'm asking is Apano is not located in Beaverton, number one. But then, of course, they do a fine job and they're all over the place and they work with the Washington County, they do Chamber of Commerce, and they're very active. But we have MISO, we have Beaverton Chamber, we have Impact, we have others that's already working with retails and BIPOC communities. So my concern is it really necessary to have this feasibility study? If it is, I would like to have, as Member John Duggar would mention, have more entities and more organizations to participate in procurement process so that we have more options of who we can go with. That's That's what I have to say.
Board Member Walton.
Agree with a lot of what has been said here, so don't want to sort of reiterate, but I had a different question. Rachel, you said there's been a sign on the door for the sort of whole time and there's been very little interest. Is that in and of itself concerning? That sort of like maybe trying to create something that there's not, like, I would expect like calls from business owners or like, is this going to be a thing? And like there being like interest in this. So just concern of like the feasibility study is what it is, but then at the end of the day, if nobody's calling saying any interest in this space, whether it's through sort of being somebody who's a vendor or somebody who's interested in the management, is there anything here without more work?
Right. I don't mean to represent that there hasn't been interest in the garage space. There very much has, and I'm not the lead on that project, so I will defer to my colleagues who can probably answer that better. But in terms of having interest from an entity that would run an incubator, we have reached out to a variety of community-based organizations throughout the region over the last year and a half, in addition to the sign on the door, and asking our contacts if this is something that they might be interested in pursuing, and we haven't gotten any takers yet. And I think maybe one of those reasons is maybe it's we don't know a lot of operational information about what this type of use needs to be successful, and so that's one of the reasons behind doing this initial work.
Any other questions? Councilor Duggar.
I just want to, one area we might want to look at is if other cities around the country have done this, because we're looking for strategies and frameworks. That doesn't necessarily have to be done by a local company if we're not finding additional competitors for this work. I would be interested in looking at, because again, we're not talking about necessarily running it, if I'm understanding that correctly, right? We're looking at strategy and framework and like setting operational boundaries and all that sort of stuff to kick off a potential. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct. Yes, we have a lot of gaps in our knowledge about this type of user and what they need, and so we may come back after this, if this work is completed, with some new information, and staff could be proposing a potential incentive program or other ways to try to recruit this type of use into our downtown.
Yeah, and the other benefit of that is like if someone even across the country has done this work, then we get expertise that was paid for by other communities and lessons learned and all that too. And so I'm just really hesitant to give this exception for a really great organization. It just goes against everything I've learned in 2 decades of procurement.
I want to pause here to give Rachel a chance to respond, and I have a question to kind of tee that off. Well, two. First, can you confirm? Typically, case studies are a part of a feasibility study. In my experience, that's part of what the consultant does, is looks at best practices in other cities to help consolidate all of that and bring it to us for consideration. The question that I have, because I see you nodding to that, is what was the rationale for sole sourcing to Apano for this work? What's compelling enough about them that seems like they would be in the best position to help us with the feasibility study?
Absolutely. So yes, the part of the scope of work with them would be to do a best practices analysis of what's working in other communities, and so that we can bring that knowledge here to Beaverton. One of the way that we started working with Apano, because they had initially expressed interest in serving as an operator, and the more that we engaged with them, we spent a lot of time meeting with them over the last few months. There were a lot of questions and like I said, kind of gaps in our knowledge about how would this work? What do they need to be successful? How much, how many staff people do you need? How many businesses to make this work? A variety of questions. And so they decided to pause, and we discussed putting the scope of work together, which could, really benefit our own understanding of how this type of use could be successful in Beaverton. We felt like, Apano has been a strong partner of some of our work in the last few years. They have the expertise and, culturally specific background to working with business owners here. And so that's how this has evolved into a scope of work.
Thank you. Okay, Mayor Beatty.
You can go to Ashley.
Okay, Board Member Hartmeyer-Prick.
Thank you. I was actually going to make a motion that we approve the exception to the procurement process for Agenda Bill 2023-56 to grant the exception for Apano. So making a motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so now we can open it up for discussion. Would anyone like to discuss this motion? Mayor Beatty.
Can you just, the other group, the other culturally competent group in Beaverton that does this work is Unite Oregon. Did you reach out to them? They have done incubator work.
Let's see. We've spoken with I am not positive that we've reached out to Unite Oregon about doing an incubator concept. I know we had talks with Adelante Mujeres, with MISO, and several other groups. I don't recall a conversation with Unite Oregon in particular.
Board Member Walton.
I just want to clarify one thing, Rachel, that I heard, which is they started the work on actually being the one who would run the thing. And then through that, determined that the feasibility study would need to be done and created a scope of work. And then was that sent out to other groups, like the feasibility study scope of work, or was it sort of created like almost kind of with them for them? I just want to make sure I'm not misunderstanding.
Sure. So in initial discussions with them about potentially serving as taking this project on, a lot of questions kept coming up, and we realized, we realized, I think from their perspective that they had a lot of questions about what would they even put in some kind of concept. And then we started to realize we have a lot of gaps about these operational issues as well. So this work is not tailored to be about Apano's specific incubator. This is about a feasibility study about what is a good model based on what's working well in other places that could be a good fit for downtown Beaverton.
And then was that then shared out with some of those other, though limited in number, organizations?
No, we did not. We did not put out a call for proposals for a feasibility study.
And so if Apano knew this affected their ability to get the work at the end, would they bow out of the feasibility study to retain the ability to do the management?
Yeah, that came up earlier. I'm not positive what that answer would be. But I think if we we do this feasibility study, if we decide to move forward with that, we do this feasibility study, and if we develop an incentive program or some other more targeted effort for an incubator, we would take the knowledge learned here and certainly reach out to other organizations to bid on a future opportunity.
I would just like pure procurement, and just back to sort of Mayor Beatty's points of just like optics and like,
sure,
if the initial feasibility study didn't have broad reach, it seems like you're sort of basically like could be perceived that you're trying to give somebody an unfair advantage by just giving them that opportunity for that work, which because it is information that the other parties wouldn't have. the same depth on. So to me, I would say, I would feel more comfortable if that work was broadcasted more broadly. And we're not talking like, the whole internet. It sounds like there's a handful of organizations we could pick up the phone and call. And think more about just making sure that everybody at least had an opportunity on that work. And then I would feel more comfortable granting the exception, given that everybody had an opportunity, fair chance to sort of be in on that initial stages, and then sort of, again, another fair chance when it came to make the decision. So that's just my stance. Thank you.
Councillor Tivnon lost her internet, so I'm going to jump in and facilitate. Council President.
Thanks. I actually have a procedural question for City Attorney. So City Attorney, I have a motion on the table to approve the exception. If we decline to approve the exception, can this come before us again in the future with an exception, or do I need to withdraw the motion if Bureau's direction is to open this back up to other potential folks to do the feasibility study?
Well, I think that what I'm hearing you say is if you voted no, could you also give direction to staff in terms of do something in order to bring it back, as in you use an intermediate procurement method, which would mean, contact at least 3 companies with a similar scope of work and have some criteria, and then evaluate and come back for that, and not do this by direct appointment. That seems like what I'm hearing you say. I think that if you were to say that in the discussions and not even included in the motion, staff, city manager, and others would understand what they needed to do in order to bring this back. So I would say that if that's the desire, 2 ways to handle it. One is you can amend your motion with the approval of the person who seconded it to include some, bring this back after you've done, I would just call it an intermediate procurement for this work. You may bring it back, or I think that's probably the cleanest way to do it, tell you the truth. Otherwise, you're leaving it to having to read what everyone on the council wants to do. And I think it's just better to make it part of the motion, so that that's what the direction of the council is. It's understood as part of the motion. So that answers your question.
Well, kind of, because the specific motion I was making was to grant a Pano an exception request. But based on what I'm hearing, I think the will of the board would potentially to put this out there to multiple folks. And so then my amendment would actually then, like, my motion, I think, would have to be grant an exception request to whomever is selected through a revised procurement, right? That's what I'm.
Yeah, no, and I don't think you do. I think what happens is you withdraw the motion and make a new motion.
Got it.
And if that motion is to deny, subject to reconsideration, given a more robust procurement process, you could do that.
Okay.
But I think that if your motion right now were to go to a vote and it passed, then obviously it passes. If it fails, there's an opportunity for, well, I think you should work through an amendment then to decide how you want to handle this.
Let me jump in here. I think that the way that the tea leaves and everyone's comments, I don't want to vote down the motion, because the council and the board is not saying like, we don't want this. What we want is a couple more questions answered to make sure this is the right choice. And so I'm fearful of that. We make a public statement like denying it. It seems very ending, where I think it would be better to withdraw the motion, ask staff to make a few phone calls and come back. That would be my recommendation, but Dan has his hand up.
Yeah, sorry to raise hands, not put my name in the chat, but yeah, I think that I just wanted to point out the underlying direction, or the requested direction, is really about whether to approve the exemption, not really about the procurement process. I think we're happy to go back and revise that, but I think that that's the question right now. It's not really about, the rest of the process, and absolutely, I think we're happy to revise the process if needed, but I think the up or down on whether to approve the exception is really the question before the body. So just want to kind of point that out, and we're happy to either get it or not get it, and or revise and come back if that's the preferred direction.
Well, I don't know if you'd be just want us. I think it would be voted down. And so my concern is if do you want it just that simple versus like, can you just go ask a few people that do, like if nobody's doing this work, like you call Unite, you call a few people, no one want to do it, then it's so much easier for us to make this decision. But my concern is like, I've heard from Unite, I know they do work like this. We didn't reach out to everybody and now we're making an exception. So I think that's more of where the council's at. I don't think it's so black and white. Mr. Attorney.
One way to accomplish that would be to table it to a date certain. You're basically saying not now, come back later, not tonight. And I don't know what that date certain is for the next borough meeting. And I don't know whether that interferes with staff's work plan and how it affects work plan, but it would probably be in the month of September sometime.
September 26th is the next meeting.
Yeah, and I would just have to look to staff in terms of operationally, does that work or doesn't it?
I think that city attorney's asking a question. Does that work or not for the staff? Like, do you need it tonight to do something?
I can say, we can wait. I know Apano was eager they've lined up some, great folks to get started on this, hopefully in the next month. And I'm not sure their availability in, later in the year, but if that's the direction, then we can certainly do that.
Councilor Timpanon, I'll turn it back over. We're at Councilor Hassan.
Great, thank you. I appreciate you picking that up for me. I have a lot of technological issues tonight. Okay, Board Member Hassan.
Hello, everyone. I am a little late. My apologies. I had a work meeting I couldn't get out of, and I'm trying to pick up very quickly on this conversation. Rachel, in less than 2 minutes, can you tell me why the exception so I can understand and try to get caught up as quickly as possible?
Sure. So the purchasing code says that we need to meet 2 criterion in order to grant an exception. One is which this is approving this would be unlikely to encourage favoritism or diminish competition. And we've outlined in the Bureau bill that that any kind of future project would still follow any our existing procurement processes, or for example, the Beaverton Central Garage, if a tenant is interested in going there, they need to submit an application, and their application is scored according to a tenant selection matrix. So that would apply to any type of user that came in here. Similarly, the next criterion is to that this approval is reasonably expected to substantially promote the public interest. This is this type of use, retail incubator that can support BIPOC-owned businesses and serve as a retail presence in the downtown, is something that our community members, particularly communities of color, have told us that they wanted to see in the downtown. This has come up at certainly in the downtown equity strategy engagement, but also some more recent project engagements as well. And so staff have been excited about this particular scope of work, and but have a lot of gaps in our knowledge about how this type of use could be successful, what types of rents could this type of user pay, et cetera. And so that is what we are talking about here today.
And just to be clear, like, I'm assuming you've done like some sort of diligence around like why you've selected Apano, like you feel good about, you brought this to us because you believe in it.
I do. I think we've reached out to a variety of community organizations, perhaps not everyone, but I will certainly go back through our notes over the last year and a half as we've been reaching out to community members, community organizations, and over this period, Apano is the only organization that has expressed interest and wanted to meet with us to discuss this concept further. And through those discussions, we've found that there's a lot of information that we need in order to move forward with this type of use.
Okay. I'm still kind of getting caught up, but I do support the staff's recommendation on this, so I'm happy with it, but I'll let others speak. Thanks.
Okay, and just to remind everybody, unless something happened while my Wi-Fi went out, we have a motion on the floor. So we're in the middle of discussing it right now. So, and Councillor Hudson, unfortunately, there was a lot of robust conversation that you missed in part of this. But we still have other people chiming in. So there might be some elements of that in it. Councillor Board Member Duggar.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, in addition to going out to a couple of other community organizations, I think what I heard at least 3 or 4 different board members ask is, would Apano want to participate in this work if we did not grant them exception? And I think that's a germane question that we need to ask them, right? Would they, if they didn't get this exception, would they do the work? And I think I would need to hear, if we can just ask that question as part of the diligence, that would be helpful.
Just a question for the city attorney. Is there any issue with the city asking a question like that about competitive bid work down the road? Can we hold them to an answer on it?
Well, the question is, if you don't get this exception, would you do this work for us? And that seems to me to be an answer that they could provide. If your question seems to be the other way around of, if you get this exception, will you be bidding on things? And I don't think they're able to forecast the future. I mean, I don't think you could hold them to that, because they would be saying, well, when I answered it, I thought X, and then circumstances change. So I think, Councillor Duggar, your question, I think, is the former question. If you aren't given this exception, will you do this work for us?
Yeah, the work that's happening right now, or that we want to happen right now. So yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you. Let's see here. Board Member Teeter.
Thank you, Rachel. In my mind, there are 2 criterion for approval, and this meets both of them, so I would vote to approve the exception.
Okay.
I think it's also important, Councillor Tivnow, when you jump back in, we were mid discussion of if we wanted to basically table this to get some of the information. And so I think what you need to try to do is read the tea leaves. My feeling is there's not enough yes votes to make it pass, and I don't want to vote it down. I think that some of us want to have those questions answered. So we could take it and vote it down, and then staff could try to bring it back, or we could table it. I think it's probably what, but it's Ashley's motion, and so she'd have to withdraw it if we did that.
Okay.
Well, and I just want to point out that if you're going to go by Robert's rules, everyone has to agree to withdraw it. And I don't know if you'll get there. So you could vote it down and then make a second motion, I suppose, to bring it back or direct staff to bring it back at a later date. But that's where we're at.
Okay. One other thing I would throw in there for consideration is this is a $25,000 contract, and public procurement is very expensive for businesses to chase work. They spend a lot of time, internal resources, and there's opportunity cost attached to every effort that they go after. So I think there's also something around that to consider if we truly believe that Apano is the heir apparent to this work, because they have the context, they have the background, the skills in a way that is so compelling that others don't. That is something that's worth considering. That being said, Board Member Duggar's points have really resonated with me. And there's a lot of really capable firms out there I think could do a good job at this as well. But I also would love to, for us to consider tabling it as well, so that we can learn more about that. Board Member Walton.
Yeah, I think I just want to sort of be super clear, since I think I'm one of the dissenting voices on, I think it could be easier than maybe we're making it. And again, Robert's rules aside, we can figure that out. But it's there are a handful of organizations that we can count on one hand that would probably even be considered by us for this work. And the point is, they just don't know that it's happening. And so if I fast forward to granting one of, so putting it out there as actually who wants to run this thing, and there was one company that did this work, and none of the other companies were even made aware, or the organizations were even made aware of this work happening. To me, that's where then you have the perception is favoritism, that we called Apano, created this thing, did it with them. And again, I'm not saying that's what happened. I don't believe that that's what happened at all, but I'm just being mindful of just the perception of we could get to a place where it feels like, well, did you reach out to any other organization? The answer was no. And it's like, I don't even know that you need to do a formal procurement process more than pick up the phone. So that it's like everybody was at least acknowledged, and the organizations that we know that do this within the community don't hear that there's this feasibility study that's going on that Apano, they didn't know about it, nobody contacted them, and then ultimately they want to sort of be involved in bidding for the work. They don't win the work, and they're upset because they had an unfair advantage. And I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying I'm just painting the perception picture. To me, it's just picking up the phone, saying there's a feasibility study. We're hoping to get it done in this time. Our budget is this amount of money. Do you have any interest? And if they all say no, then like it's as easy as just motioning or moving forward with what we said. I think Mayor Beatty, I liked the suggestion that you were making of the motion with a contingency, is kind of how I understood it, so that we don't have to wait until September for the group to come back. But again, Bill has raised his hand and knows way more than I do about all of this. So.
Well, what I wanted to address first of all is the city does have what's called an intermediate procurement, and it's not a full-fledged RFP type process. The way we would instruct staff is think about what the scope of work is, think about what your criteria for selection are going to be. Availability, cost would obviously be some similar projects in the past, and then go out and reach out to at least 3, maybe more firms to see what they say. If you don't get a response from some, you have a choice of either looking for more or saying, look, I sent it out to 5 people, 3 responded. This is the best one. I don't know about the other 2. I made my effort. So it's I don't want to paint the picture as a formal RFP, which is very onerous. That takes months. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that if the desire is to withdraw the motion, it would be that Ashley Hartmeyer-Brigg, having made the motion, would request that it be withdrawn. If there's objection to that motion, then what has to happen is that there's a vote. And then a majority, it's withdrawn. If not a majority, it's not withdrawn. And then we go ahead and vote if it's not withdrawn. Next, if it is withdrawn, there's an opportunity to make another motion. And whether that's to table it or do something else, I guess we'd have to think about that after a few steps. But if the desire is to withdraw the motion, the person that made the motion can request to withdraw it. If there's a second, or if no one, the chair would ask, is anyone opposed? If anyone's opposed to withdrawing the motion, it moves to, a motion is made to withdraw. Is there a second? And if so, then we'll vote. And I hope that's clear, but that's, I think, where we are as a group right now in terms of this matter.
I will move to withdraw my motion.
Okay, the chair would ask, is there anyone who opposes that?
Is there anyone who opposes that?
I might. Can I just understand again? So if we oppose it, we have to go back to a vote.
If you oppose it, what you're doing, you will go to a vote on whether to allow the withdrawal of the motion.
My concern is that we don't really know where we are. I hear enough. I did come late, so I apologize, but I guess I don't know. I'd like us to vote on this, so I oppose.
Okay, so there's an opposition. Is there a second to the withdrawal of the motion?
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion? I'm sorry to just take over on this, but I think it's faster. Any discussion on that motion to withdraw?
I'm going to chime in here. So my understanding is, with the information we have at hand, with the discussion we've had tonight, I know which way my vote's probably going to go, depending on what the outcome of the vote is. Regardless, where does this put us if this is voted down?
If the motion to withdraw is voted down, then you're voting on the original motion as made by Councilor Hardmeyer-Brigg.
And I think it doesn't come back to us where the relief of it withdrawing it and coming back to us next month, it still puts Apano in there. If the criteria is met, if we vote it down tonight, then there's no exception and they're not going to take the work. I think it would be very certain to vote and it would be over or not over, versus what I think a lot of us are asking for is answer a couple questions and come back.
Okay, so essentially Apano might lose this opportunity if we do this.
Well, you won't have, yeah, I think you're correct.
Okay.
So can I chime in real quick? My intention there was to second the opposition. Can I withdraw my second? Because I seconded it after precedence. Sorry.
Well, you're doing advanced. Can you? No, I don't think you can withdraw a second.
That's some advanced Robert rules right there.
So I think, Chair, I can turn it over to you, but I think if you had some discussion points, if anyone else has discussions that, Councilor Teeter had questions, then we're ready to vote on the issue of withdrawal. If the motion carries, then we have nothing on the floor and someone can make a completely new motion. If the motion fails, what will happen is you'll have to vote on the original motion, whether to grant the exception or not.
Okay, so my brain is all scrambled right now. For the board, if we vote yes to this current motion, what is the outcome of that?
The motion is withdrawn and that leaves a blank matter. Another motion can be made.
And that's a yes vote.
A yes vote allows for withdrawal of the motion, correct? A no vote says no withdrawal of the motion, and you'll need to then go and vote on the original motion.
Is everyone clear on that? Yeah, okay.
Can I just clarify on my end as Deputy City Recorder? So am I clarifying that we've got a motion on the floor to withdraw the original motion and it's seconded by Kevin Teeter? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Board Member Hassan.
I'll just say I understand the complexity of this. It's $25,000. I have been known in the past for being concerned around us giving special exceptions. I did done that before. In this case, I think this is fine. So I'm going to vote no on the withdrawal because I'd like us to proceed with this agenda bill and vote on it. Want you all to know that. Thank you.
So you'll be voting no on the motion you just made?
No, the motion to withdraw.
The motion, I'm voting no on Councillor Hartmeyer-Prigg's motion to withdraw because I want us to vote on this. I know, okay.
Got it.
Okay, all right, before I think we just
sorry,
broke,
just real
I
quick.
might have just broken parliamentary procedure there.
Yeah,
How about,
sorry.
I'm just gonna throw this to the city recorder to call the roll unless there's any other discussion on the matter.
I just want to make sure we're all actually on the same page. And since Councillor Hassan was here later, I don't think anybody is concerned about the 25,000. It's the bigger, like, at least, like, I don't want to speak for everybody else, but sort of for me, it's we started with one partner. That partner is the only person that's seen the $25,000 thing. And then we're granting an exception that partner could have the ability to also run that thing, which just citywide is not the case. And so I think my ask is open it up just a little bit without a full RFP process so that there's no perceived special interest or advantage to one party, which could blow back later on. It's not like there's no debate. The $25,000 is, and if there weren't the thing on the floor, I don't think anybody would talk about $25. To me, it's the public interest and the perception of one partner saw the thing, got an exception. And so I think there was even a talk from Mayor Beatty to withdraw and then reintroduce that there is an exception for anybody, not just Apano. Because right now we're just making the exception for them. So and again, I don't think this is nefarious. I don't think anything I'm just sort of completely again, there's many procurement professionals on this call. It feels like a small amount of work to just reach out to a couple of the other organizations, get a no, get a yes, and broaden the exception to say, we need a partner. Maybe this is a different space because it's equity and we can count all the partners on one hand. So clearly we have a a different bigger problem. But so I just wanted to clarify that to make sure that we're all saying the same thing, because I think we're all on the same page, but I think we're getting lost in Robert's rules. So, and again, if we're not on the same page, that's okay too, but just want to clarify that, knowing that you were late to the party, Councillor Hassan.
Okay, well, the recorder please call the roll.
I think that was for roll call. So let's take a roll on motion to withdraw. Board Member Beatty.
Yes.
Duggar.
Yes.
Hessen.
No.
Hartmeyer Prigg.
Yes.
Kim.
Yes.
Kimmy.
Yes.
Teeter.
No.
Tivnon.
Yes. Sorry, this is really hard for me tonight. I have two mics. Yes.
Okay. Vitko.
Yes.
And Walton.
Yes.
Withdrawal passes.
All right. Now at this point, there is no motion on the floor, and a motion can be made regarding this agenda bill. We're back to where we started.
Do we need to make a motion, or can we just direct staff to say, bring it back? What is your preference? I don't think we have
I
to
think
vote
the
on it.
easiest thing to do is to say, we're going to table this to our next borough meeting and vote on that. And then that'll bring it back, and any additional supplemental information. Staff understands what you're looking for based upon all the discussion we've had.
All right. I move
So-
that we table this agenda item till the next meeting of Bureau.
Second.
There be no discussion. Board Member Hessen.
Yeah, I'll just be very quick. Board Member Walton, I heard what you said and I see you, I hear you. I do want to at some point honor some of the work that like staff has done on this. So that's kind of where I was at, but like I'm good to table this if that's the direction we're going. So I just wanted to make sure that was on record. Thanks.
All right, will the recorder please call the roll?
Yes, I'm sorry. Who was that second?
Vitko.
Thank you. Board Member Beatty.
Yes.
Duggar.
Yes.
Hessen.
Yes.
Hartmeyer Prigg.
Yes.
Kim.
Yes.
Kimmy.
Yes.
Teeter.
No.
Tivnon.
Yes.
Vitko.
Yes.
Walton.
Yes.
Passes 9-1.
All right, thank you. I would like to turn things over rather quickly to Assistant City Manager Dan Weinheimer.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. We've got a few more items on the agenda and wanted to maybe do a little bit of trimming to maximize our time. So I think along with the spirit of moving some items to September 26th, which is our next Bureau meeting, wanted to move or propose moving, let's see, item 2023-58, the Parks and Open Space Draft Framework Plan that was discussed and presented at City Council. So there's some video of that if folks are interested in watching that from this last week's meeting. And we can come back, like I said, on the 26th to present that information for Bureau. And then 2023-59, I think we'll also move. That's the Beaverton Central Garage Rates and Programs. We'll likely move that as well to the 26th. And I think we're going to give it a shot to continue with the rest of the agenda. But if we need time, I think we may also bump 2023-61, which is our 5-year strategic plan priorities discussion, because we do also have 2 brief items for executive session. So I want to leave time for that and to make sure that the recorder has enough time to transition to our City Council meeting at the end of this time.
Given that we have, I'm so sorry. I'm so used to unmuting that button. I promise I'm going to put a piece of tape on that so I don't do it anymore. Okay, so we just had something in the chat here. Okay, so it's just reiterating what you just said. I think that makes a lot of sense given what we have on our plate for tonight. So like thumbs up, yes. Great. Okay. All right, well then moving on, we're going to go next to Bureau Bill 2023-57 Metro 2040 Planning and Development Grant for Lombard West application request. Javier Mena, do you have a staff presentation for us tonight?
I thank you very much, President of the Bureau Board and board members. I do not have a presentation. I'm very, very quick. I know that the agenda is full. My name is Javier Mena. I am from the Development Division, Affordable Housing. Just presenting a staff request for an authorization to submit a Metro Equitable Development Grant application for the benefit of the Lombard West site. And I'll refer to the agenda bill for any for the remaining part of the information, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Mena? Okay. All right, is there a motion on this matter?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Board Member Hessen, seconded by Hartmeyer Prigg. Any discussion? Okay, will the recorder please call the roll?
Beatty?
Yes.
Duggar?
Yes.
Hartmeyer Prigg?
Yes.
Hessen?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Kimmy?
Yes.
Tivnon?
Yes.
Ditko?
Yes.
Walton?
Yes.
Passes 10-0.
And I didn't vote, so I want to vote.
Sorry,
yes.
Teeter.
Board member Teeter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Next item for tonight is Bureau Bill 2023-60, Approved Bureau Portfolio Redevelopment Strategy. Janine Lambert, hello. Thank you very much. Is there a short presentation?
Yes, just very short. It is just a map. Good evening, Chair Tivnon and board members. Janine Lambert, Senior Development Project Manager in Community Development. Just a quick intro. Since 2018, Bureau has acquired 8.5 acres and assembled properties into 5 key redevelopment sites along high capacity light rail transit. In January of this year, staff and the consultant team Cascadia Partners launched the Bureau Portfolio Redevelopment Strategy. This is a high-level strategy set up to determine community goals for these redevelopment properties, how to leverage the current market factors, determine best uses, programming, community benefits, phasing for projects, and certain pre-development considerations before releasing them for development solicitation. At the May 22nd meeting, Bureau Board heard from the consultant an in-depth presentation of the work, engagement, and recommendations for the strategy presented here this evening and attached as an exhibit. We want to thank the Cascadia team for their work and all of the community members who participated in the process and shared their thoughts about how they want to see redevelopment happen on these sites in downtown along light rail transit. We also want to thank Bureau Board for their time and guidance through the process. So tonight we are seeking your approval of the Bureau Portfolio Redevelopment Strategy included in the Bureau Bill package. Any questions?
Last call for questions. Anyone want to enter their name into the chat? Okay. All right, seeing none. Do we have a motion on this matter?
Yes, Chair. I move that we approve Bureau Portfolio Redevelopment Strategy Agenda Bill 2023-60.
Second.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's been moved and we have a second. Any discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Board Member Beatty?
Yes.
Duggar?
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Hartmark,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Kimmy,
Yes.
Teeter,
Yes.
Tibnon,
Yes.
Bitco,
Yes.
Walton,
Yes.
passes.
Okay, I'm assuming that motion carried unanimously. We're going to be moving on to our last item of business tonight. This business item requires no action. It is Bureau Bill 2023-61. I'm sorry, Bureau Agenda Item 2320-61, presentation of Bureau's 5-year plan, strategic priorities discussion. Chase and Tyler, can you open up this conversation and discuss the 5-year priorities? Take it away, please.
Thank you, Chair and board members. Tyler Ryerson, Development Division Manager. Thank you for your time tonight. Chase is going to lead you through a PowerPoint presentation to continue our conversation about our 5-year action, strategic priorities, things that we've been talking about all year, and we're trying to narrow down further and further of where we've been, where we're going, and how we want to proceed as we build our 5-year action plan. Not a lot of time tonight, so I'm just going to give it over to Chase and we'll get rolling. Thank you.
Good evening, board. Thank you for having me back again to talk with you about 5-year planning efforts. Can you all hear me okay? Great. I'm Chase Landry. I'm with the Development Division Program Coordinator. I'll share my screen here and let me open this up in a full presentation. There we go. Okay. So just to recap a little bit of where we've been on this discussion, moving towards a new 5-year action plan. Back in January, we talked some of the basics of urban renewal and Bureau's history. Came back in February with a status of the allocations in that plan and a little bit more about our maximum indebtedness. This is also related to it in May and at the June meetings. In the Bureau budget meeting, we talked a lot about the plans and programs that are currently in the works and approved for the next fiscal year for Bureau. And tonight, I want to talk to you a little bit more about our status of implementation on the projects and plans that are listed in the Urban Renewal Plan, and then open up a discussion around our strategic priorities and to hear from you all what you think the strategic priorities should be for Bureau for the next 5 years in the new 5-year plan. The hope is then to come back to you in September with a draft forecast that reflects those strategic priorities, and then to come back by the end of the calendar year with a new 5-year plan for your approval. Tonight, going to cover a couple of things and hoping to proceed quickly through the slides so we can leave the most amount of time for your discussion. Want to cover a little bit more background on some of the work that's been done recently and an update to the allocation percentages that was requested at the previous meeting. I want to talk about the projects that are currently in the pipeline that we've either committed to for the next fiscal year or that are in the works for the next years after that. And then finally want to go back a little bit further and look at that urban renewal plan, the original plan, establishing plan for Bureau, and see what projects we've addressed and what projects that are listed in that plan that maybe haven't been addressed yet or could possibly be addressed more. Then move on to a discussion for you all. So some questions to keep in mind as we go along. Considering our commitment to equity and our goals to leverage private funding and to really work towards catalytic investments. Question one, be thinking, is Bureau adequately achieving these goals with today's and future projects and program priorities? And two, what proposed ideas from the plan are important or timely to address in the next 5 years? So when I'm talking about a 5-year plan, this is a little snapshot from our previous one. Our most recent 5-year plan was approved in 2020. It included a 5-year forecast over here on the right, which detailed some amounts that we considered at that time we would be spending, or buckets of cash to be spending towards certain projects in certain areas. You can see the allocations in gold there. And then on the left, we included in the plan strategic priorities. So these were the top level priorities in addition to the normal goals and work of BURA that we thought for the next 5 years were worth focusing on. They included strategic land acquisition, expanded program activities, affordable housing development, and supporting capital infrastructure. And we've made a lot of progress towards those items. So we've moved forward with acquiring several properties. We've revamped the tenant improvement and storefront programs. We've worked on the downtown equity strategy, supported the Mary Ann affordable housing apartments, and we've also worked on projects related to capital infrastructure like the garage, Western Ave, Loop, and many others. So one item that came up before was a request to visualize this. How can we see what we've been working on? I'm going to stop sharing here for a moment, and I'm going to reshare a different screen with you to show you a draft dashboard that we've been working on with some of our team members. So this is a dashboard that is not yet publicly shared on any website or place. We're still working on it, but this shows the plans and projects that we've worked on for BURA in a map format. And we have some options to, for example, go over here and select different items like the Beaverton Central Garage, and it zooms in, and you can have information and links to that. We're hoping to work more on this and get this in a point where it can be shared. We also have other information about building permits and maps that show our grant work that we've done and how it's spread out through the city. One thing to keep in mind, we've talked about this previously, is how things are spread out within the 4 BURA sub areas. So if you can see, there's a lot of concentration in the transit-oriented area and in Old Town. That's reflected in our project and program map as well. It shows some of that in the real estate here. And that's just something to bear in mind as we go forward in discussion about future projects. Sorry for the quick screen share change. We're going to go back to the slides now. All right. There we go. So this is just covering those sub areas again. So what does that mean then for the work that we've done to our allocations? These are the allocations that are listed out in 30 years of BURA, where we're supposed to reach, with 48% going towards transportation infrastructure. And then you can see the other values here on the right for our different allocation categories. Well, since the previous fiscal year, now ending in June of this last year, we've updated here to the chart on the left. So you can see that we are pretty closely tracking to, so far, transportation infrastructure. And some of our other categories are pretty close as well. And this is now with us over half of our maximum indebtedness. There's some more work that can be done to refine these numbers. We're still waiting on, of course, the final reports of our amounts for last year. And you'll see in our next presentation an update to these numbers, just to get them a little bit closer to what our final totals will be. So bearing that in mind, what then are we working on? What are our current commitments? What items have we already approved in the next fiscal year? Or have we said that we're going to be doing in the next year's following? Well, I want to start with the downtown equity strategy. There are several items here like business organizing, construction disruption assistance, technical assistance, and others below that we are committed to doing already over the next 5 years. We are talking about several real estate related items. So implementation of the portfolio strategy, remaining opportunistic if there's time or chance to acquire new properties, and supporting affordable housing. We're committed currently to projects like the Loop, Canyon Road pedestrian safety and ODOT project coming up, Western Ave improvement, completing that, and one to really look out for is creek and stormwater improvements and what that could mean like for the future years, as well as completing a few items with downtown parking management and more with improved routes to parking. We have items that are related to the community identity category, which includes kicking off arts and innovation district planning, looking at the second phase of the Hall and Crescent art installation to complement the lovely ribbon there by the Reeser. And then more work with general streetscape enhancement and with First Street Dining Commons. We'll note, program income policy forthcoming to discuss about the dining commons. And then finally in this section, our grant programs, continuing to work on pre-development, building improvement, our grants and our other programs like parking management and our property management, which includes everything from the parking garage facility, the retail spaces, managing the Bureau portfolio sites, and some placemaking exploration. And very last but not least, some funding, of course, to continue for staffing and other costs to manage the projects and the finances related to this work. So bearing that in mind, here's what we kind of see with some of the trends of the work that we're currently committed towards doing. You can see on the left projects and programs. I've listed them roughly from larger expenditures at the top to smaller expenditures at the bottom. Of course, that can always change. But we have, as you can see, majority of the ones on the top, on the left, are looking at joint investment, transportation infrastructure, and then some towards community identity on the bottom, which roughly reflects where we should be on our allocation categories going forward. Now, rewind things back a little bit further. There was a great idea at a previous meeting to look and do kind of a review of the urban renewal plan and see if we are tracking to the items that were listed in the plan. The plan lists several proposed items. They're not necessarily listed as promises of everything that Bureau would do, but as ideas of what Bureau could do. And so I went back and did a review of that and attached that to your Bureau bill with a matrix of everything listed in there. And we've covered a lot of things listed in the plan, a lot of transportation connectivity, working with catalytic projects, and all that listed here on the left. But there were some items that either haven't been addressed or could possibly be addressed further that I wanted to share with you tonight as you're thinking about future Bureau projects and strategic goals. So in the largest category for our allocations, the 48% transportation infrastructure, there are some room for addressing sidewalk infill. That's completing the areas where there are not sidewalks or there could be sidewalk improvements needed. Some of this is likely addressed through the loop, but there are other areas in the Bureau area that could address that. And then utility upgrades, water, storm, sewer, those sort of undergrounding of utilities and work with utilities that help build the infrastructure that can really then support private development and the growth that we're hoping to see in Beaverton. In the joint investment category, one that has been started to be addressed, especially over on Western Avenue, by Bureau is industrial or traded sector job support, but that when talking to other staff, we really see more work and more items pursued for this for the future. This includes the attraction of diverse types of businesses and business ownership from diverse backgrounds. Another BDES, Beaverton Downtown Equity Strategy recommendation in this category too, is the pursuit of inclusive and affordable commercial spaces. So looking at some joint investment ideas for that. In the incentive program category, one of the things that had not been addressed yet necessarily fully was historic building conservation. So we obviously do a lot of work with the building improvement program and other projects that we've done, but a robust historic building conservation program has not yet been pursued by Bureau. In addition, there are some options being explored. And if we hear from Bureau tonight, some interest in community ownership models and incentives that come out of the Beaverton Downtown Equity Strategy. And then moving to our smallest category, community identity upgrades. There are a lot of things here. Obviously, it's only 4% of our total 150 million, to pursue on that, but there are things that we could touch on more that have not yet necessarily been addressed, like more identifiable landmarks, just keeping in mind that our place making and place naming efforts are inclusive on that. More streetscape improvements like curb extensions and traffic calming, historic markers. Think of that Beaverton sign down over on Broadway that looks like it could use some love. And also the creek enhancements. So working to implement some of the recommendations of the Creekside Master Plan related to that, and then also the items in the plan about creek system restoration and assistance with wetland and floodplain. And there's some possible overlap here between these creek enhancements and stormwater that could be pursued. So next steps after we have our discussion in a moment would be once again to bring this back in September, hopefully bring back Tiberius Solutions to talk about some of the financial forecasting related to a 5-year forecast, and then come by the end of the year and talk about a 5-year plan presentation, bring that before you and see what you think about what we've done with your recommendations. Again, just a reminder that this is not something that we're looking to see as 5 years. We set it and forget it. We're hoping to come back every 1 or 2 years and update this 5-year action plan in a rolling way to hear from you as situations change and as a different context occurs in the urban renewal area. So to go back to the questions that I shared at the beginning, considering Bureau's commitment to equity and inclusion and our leveraging goals, is Bureau adequately achieving these goals with today's and future projects and program priorities? And what proposed ideas from the plan are important or timely to address for you in the next 5 years? I'm going to stop sharing now, and I will put these in the chat in just a moment.
Thank you, Chase. And I've been having a rigorous conversation behind the scenes with folks that are helping to run these meetings. And unfortunately, maybe fortunately, we're going to have to table this discussion until September. We have executive session in front of us, and the city recorder's team needs time to transition us into our council meeting tonight. So unfortunately, it wasn't a planned council meeting. There was a lot of moving parts. Our agenda was just too filled with too many great things to talk about tonight for Bureau. So what we propose doing is sending out this slide deck. Of course, you have materials also along with the agenda packet, and really give it a read through. Look through all these slides, think about those questions. And I believe if we take between now and the next meeting, we'll have a really informed conversation coming into it in September. So that leaves us just a couple of minutes to wrap things up for this meeting before we transition into executive session. If anyone has any comments, I'd ask that they just really brief right now before we wrap up the public part of this meeting and transition. Does anyone have anything that they would like to share before I close the meeting? Okay, all right. Well, in that case, let me just scroll down here, get this ready. All right, we are going to be moving into, actually, no, we had the executive director's report. Mr. Weinheimer, do you have any comments? Or are you tabling that?
I think we'll hold on those. I appreciate the opportunity, but no, I think in the essence of time, happy to wait. Great.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to now move into executive session in accordance with ORS 192.6602E to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions. Pursuant to ORS 192.6604, it is the Bureau Board's requirement that the items discussed not be disclosed by media representatives or others. We will not be taking any action after executive session. Our next meeting is on September 26th, 2023. So good night to everyone who has been listening, and we're officially adjourned. See the rest of you over in the executive session.